Good evening, and welcome back to Candlelit Chronicles. Tonight, we are going to spend one whole day, a single, ordinary day, in a small medieval village somewhere in Europe, roughly 700 years ago. Not with kings, and not with knights in shining armor, but with the ordinary people who actually built the medieval world. The ones who woke before the sun to tend the fields and fell asleep by firelight to the sound of wind in the thatch. Why, exactly, wouldn't you last a day in it? And what did that day actually feel like from the inside for the people who lived it? Before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. It helps these quiet stories find the people who need them. And I would love to know where you are listening from tonight. Share your location and your local time in the comments below. There is something comforting in imagining this story unfolding softly across different corners of the world. All of us settling down together. Now, dim the lights, get comfortable, let the day you have just finished slip quietly away. Settle in, let your eyes rest. Tonight, we drift back to a small village at the edge of a great forest, where a single candle is about to be lit in the dark, and where an ordinary person, whom we shall simply call Agnes, is about to begin a day very much like every other day of her life, under the very same stars you are lying beneath now. It is not yet light, and the village is utterly, deeply dark. There is no lamppost for 100 miles, no glow on the horizon from some distant town. When the moon is hidden, the dark here is a real physical thing, thick enough to touch, and it presses gently against the small, shuttered window of Agnes's cottage. Inside, she stirs on a straw-filled mattress laid across a wooden frame, a rough wool blanket pulled to her chin, and beside her, the banked embers of last night's fire glow the faintest dull red, like a sleeping eye. She rises in the cold and feels for her clothes in the dark by memory alone. A long woolen shift, then a tunic, then an apron dyed the soft brown of walnut husks. Every stitch of it she made herself, or her mother did, spun from wool sheared off their own small flock. There is no shop to buy clothing from. Cloth is time, is labour, is worth more than you might think. A single new gown can take a woman a full season to spin, weave and sew. She kneels at the hearth and coaxes the embers back to life. A breath, a twist of dry straw, a curl of smoke, and then gently, flame. This is the one fire in the house, and it must never fully die. Not through the coldest nights of January, not ever, if she can help it. Fire in this world is not a convenience. It is survival itself, kept alive one careful breath at a time. Her shoes wait by the door, simple turned leather, soft-soled, made by the village's one cobbler from the hide of a cow slaughtered last autumn. They will be resold more than once before they are ever thrown away, and when they finally are, even then the leather will find some further use. A hinge, a strap, a patch for something else entirely. Very little in this world is ever simply discarded. Everything is mended, and mended again, until there is truly nothing left to mend. Through the thin wall, she can hear the animals stirring too. A hen shifting on her roost, the family's one pig grunting softly in the small yard, a goat's bell giving a single sleepy clink. In a village like this, the animals are never far away, often just through a low partition from the family's own sleeping space, sharing the same roof, the same warmth, the same breath in the cold morning air. Outside, as the sky begins its slow grey lightening, the village itself starts to take shape around her. It is not what you might picture. No cobblestones, no grand square, just a cluster of low cottages with walls of woven wattle daubed in clay, and roofs of thick golden thatch, gathered loosely around a green common and a small stone church whose bell, in a moment, will begin to ring. Smoke rises here and there from a dozen low doorways, thin grey threads climbing straight up into the still morning air, because most cottages have no chimney at all, just a hole in the thatch, or the smoke finding its own slow way out. The bell rings, not for a service, simply the day's own gentle alarm, the same 3 notes that have called this village to its work since before Agnes's grandmother was born. Doors creak open along the lane, neighbours nod to one another in the half-light, breath showing pale in the cold. There is a particular sound to a medieval morning that you would notice immediately if you closed your eyes and listened. How quiet it is. No engines, no distant traffic hum, just birdsong and a rooster somewhere, and the soft clop of a single ox being led out to pasture. Agnes steps outside and draws a bucket of water from the village well, the rope rough and cold against her palms. The water is startlingly clear and startlingly cold, straight from deep in the chalky ground, and she drinks a little, standing right there, cupped in her hands, before hauling the rest home. There is no indoor plumbing anywhere in this world, not in the humblest cottage, and, in truth, not in most of the grandest castles either. Water is something you fetch, by hand, every single day, twice over, and you learn very quickly not to waste a drop of it. Breakfast, such as it is, comes quickly and simply. A heel of yesterday's dark rye bread, dense and slightly sour, torn and dipped into a thin, warm pottage left simmering over the fire from the night before. A soft stew of oats, peas, and whatever greens the garden offered, flavoured with a little onion and, on a fortunate day, a sliver of salted bacon. This is the true food of the medieval world, eaten by nearly everyone, nearly every day, not roasted swans and towering feasts, which belonged to perhaps one household in 1,000, but bread and pottage, morning, noon, and night, endlessly varied only by whatever the season happened to provide. There is a particular kind of wisdom in a pot that never quite empties. A little more water added, a few more vegetables from the garden, simmering for days over the same slow fire. Nothing here is wasted, because nothing here can afford to be. Every grain of barley, every turnip, every scrap of fat represents someone's real labour, all the way back to a hand pushing a plough through heavy spring soil. Salt sits in a small covered dish near the hearth, guarded carefully, because salt is one of the few things this village cannot make for itself, carried in by a trader from some distant coast, and traded dearly. Everything else on the table, more or less, has never travelled farther than the edge of the fields, which is precisely why the turning of the seasons matters here so completely. Right now, in this part of the year, the larder is at its fullest, still holding the last of the smoked bacon, the strings of dried apples, the sacks of grain milled back in the autumn. By late winter, that same larder will be thin and careful, every meal a small exercise in patience, waiting for the first green shoots of spring. The whole rhythm of this village, in fact, bends constantly toward that coming winter, in ways easy to miss unless you are looking for them. Right now, in these gentler months, is when the real work of preparing happens. Apples laid out carefully in the loft to dry, herbs from Mother Ellen's garden bundled and hung from every rafter, the pig fattened all summer on scraps and acorns, soon to be slaughtered and salted down to last the family clear through to spring. Nothing is done at the last moment here, because the last moment in a hard winter can mean genuine hunger. Every warm afternoon like this one is, quietly, an investment in a colder day still months away. Agnes eats standing, the way most do, because the day does not wait. Outside already, she can hear the low murmur of the village gathering itself, voices, the creak of a cart, a dog barking somewhere down the lane. Whatever today happens to be, plowing or planting or the long, patient work of the harvest, it begins now with the light, and it will not stop until the light is gone again. Nearly everyone in this village is a peasant, though that word carries a weight today it did not always carry then. Some are free, working their own strips of land and owing only rent or service to the local lord. Others are villains, bound more tightly to the manor, owing set days of labour on the lord's own fields in exchange for their own small holding. Either way, the shape of the year is the same for almost all of them, and it is the land, far more than any lord, that truly rules their lives. The fields themselves stretch out beyond the village in long, narrow strips, striped like a great patchwork quilt across the hillside. An ingenious system where each family's land is scattered in pieces across several different fields, so that good soil and poor soil, sun and shade, are shared out fairly among everyone. Today, let us say, is a ploughing day, and Agnes's husband Thomas is already out among the furrows with their neighbour's borrowed ox, guiding a heavy wooden plough that turns the soil in slow, dark, satisfying ridges. It is brutal, unhurried work. One ox, one plough, one furrow at a time. All day, every muscle in a man's back and shoulders committed to keeping that blade steady and straight. A day's ploughing might cover barely an acre. There are no engines here to multiply a single pair of hands, only patience and animals and the accumulated wisdom of 1,000 seasons passed down from father to son about exactly when to plant and exactly how deep and exactly which slope of the hill drains too fast after rain. Nearby, children too young yet for the heaviest labour are set to gentler tasks, chasing crows from the newly sown seed with wooden clappers, minding the geese, gathering fallen branches for the fire. There is no school here in any way we would recognise it. Childhood in this world eases quickly into work, a small, useful pair of hands added to the family's effort as soon as they are able, not out of unkindness, but because there is, quite simply, no other way for the family to survive the coming winter. Beyond the strips of common field stands the manor house, larger than any cottage, but, in truth, far more modest than the word castle might suggest. Stone at the base, timber above. A hall where the lord hears disputes and collects his dues. A barn bigger than any barn in the village itself. Agnes and Thomas owe him certain days of labour on his own land, and a portion of their harvest besides, in exchange for the strips of soil they work and the rough justice and protection he is bound, in turn, to provide. It is not a relationship of warmth exactly, but neither is it, most days, one of cruelty. Simply the old, settled shape of how this world holds itself together, as unremarkable to Agnes as weather. Today, as it happens, is not one of the days owed to the Lord, and so the whole morning's labour is entirely her family's own, which matters more than any stranger might guess. A day's work on your own strip of land, watching your own barley climb, feels entirely different from a day's work on someone else's. By midday, the whole village has settled into its long, steady rhythm. Agnes, meanwhile, has work of her own that never quite ends. There is the garden to tend, just behind the cottage. Cabbages, onions, beans and herbs, every one of them essential, none of them ornamental. There is wool to spin, an endless task worked into every spare moment of every day, the spindle turning almost by itself in hands that have done this 10,000 times before. There is the pig to feed, the hens to check, and bread to bake in the village's shared oven, since few cottages can afford one of their own, each family taking its turn to slide dough in on a long wooden paddle. And there is the village itself to move through, which is its own kind of quiet pleasure. The blacksmith's hammer rings out in a steady rhythm from his open-sided forge, shaping a new hinge or mending a broken ploughshare, sparks drifting up into the pale daylight. The miller's great wheel turns slow and patient down by the stream, grinding the village's grain into flour. The low, steady rush of water, a sound so constant that no one here even notices it anymore. The mill itself belongs to the Lord, as mills nearly always do, and every family in the village is bound to bring its grain here rather than grind at home, paying a small measure of flour back to the miller for his trouble. An arrangement grumbled about, gently, at every well and hearth in England and France alike, and yet also, quietly, appreciated, since one good stone wheel turned by water can grind in an hour what a woman's arm might take a full, exhausting day to manage by hand. Inside, the air is thick and pale with drifting flour dust, catching the light from the small window like a kind of soft, constant snow. The miller himself, dusted white from cap to boots, calls a greeting to Agnes as she passes, and asks, as he asks everyone, after Thomas's ploughing. News of the fields travels no faster and no more reliably than it does through a mill doorway. Nearby, a few sheep graze the common land, watched over by a boy with a long stick and, more usefully, a sharp-eared dog. Agnes passes the small stone church at the centre of it all, its bell marking not the hours in any precise way, but the great, unhurried rhythm of the day itself. A rhythm the whole village moves inside of, together, the way you might move inside the beat of a familiar old song. There is comfort, it must be said, in a life this tightly woven. Everyone here knows everyone. Everyone's fortune is, in some real sense, everyone else's fortune too. When the harvest is good, the whole village eats well. When it fails, the whole village goes hungry together. Just past the church lives the village's healer, an older woman everyone simply calls Mother Ellen, though she is no relation to anyone in particular. Or perhaps by now, kin to nearly everyone, in the way that comes from decades of easing fevers and setting bones. Her small garden is unlike any other in the village, given over entirely to herbs rather than food. Feverfew and comfrey and lavender hung in soft drying bundles from her rafters, their scent drifting out into the lane on a warm afternoon. She knows which root eases a cough, which poultice draws heat from a wound, and, just as importantly, she knows when there is nothing more to be done but sit with someone quietly and hold their hand and let them feel less alone. Her knowledge is not written down anywhere. It lives entirely in her hands and in her memory, passed to her by the woman who held this same small garden before her. And she is already, in her patient way, passing pieces of it on to a granddaughter who trails after her some afternoons, learning which leaf is which. It is a kind of medicine with real limits, and everyone here knows that too. But it is also full of a genuine, hard-won wisdom about the body and the seasons that would not be entirely out of place in any garden today. And harvest failure, and hunger, and sickness, these were never far from the medieval mind, and it is worth sitting with that honestly, gently, for a moment. This is, without question, a hard world to be born into. A bad harvest could mean real hunger by the following spring, the thin months before the new crops came in, when the last of the stored grain ran low and everyone in the village felt the same tightening worry. Illness came without warning and often without explanation, treated with a patchwork of genuine herbal wisdom, quiet prayer, and sometimes treatments that did more harm than good, because no one yet understood what caused an illness to spread. Winters were long, and firewood was precious, and a hard frost at the wrong moment in spring could undo a whole season's careful work in a single night. And yet, within all of that hardship, there was also an entire life being lived in full. Friendships tended over years, children loved fiercely, small jokes shared at the well, a wedding celebrated with the whole village dancing on the green until the light failed. The people of this world were not simply enduring, grimly, waiting for something better. They were living, as fully and as richly as circumstances allowed, finding real warmth and real meaning inside lives that were, by our standards, extraordinarily difficult. That, perhaps, is the quiet lesson worth carrying to sleep tonight. How much light people have always managed to keep alive, even in genuinely hard and uncertain times. As the afternoon wears on, the light itself begins to soften and lengthen, the long golden slant of late day falling across the stubbled fields. Thomas and the other men bring the ox in from the furrows, unhitching it with the particular unhurried care of people who know that same animal must work again tomorrow. There is real gratitude in how carefully these animals are treated, and real reason for it too. This one ox, borrowed today from a neighbour and lent back another day in turn, represents more raw pulling power than a dozen strong men combined. And a village without a healthy ox, or without a healthy neighbour willing to share one, is a village facing a far harder spring. The animals here are never simply livestock in the way we might picture from a distance. They are partners, in the most practical and literal sense, in every single thing this village manages to grow. Agnes gathers in the washing from where it has dried across a low hedge all day, stiff with sun and wind. Down at the stream, a few of the village women linger a little longer than strictly necessary, laundry mostly finished, trading news the way people everywhere always have. Whose cow calved early? Whose roof needs rethatching before the autumn rains? Who is soon to be married? Not far from the well, under a lean-to roof, sits the loom Agnes shares with two of her neighbours, taking turns at it through the week as their spinning allows. Weaving is slow, exacting work. The shuttle passed back and forth, a single day's patient effort producing perhaps an arm's length of coarse woolen cloth. What colour it becomes depends entirely on what the surrounding fields and hedgerows offer up. A soft yellow from onion skins, a warm brown from walnut hulls, a rare and treasured blue on the finest cloth from woad grown specially in one corner of a neighbour's garden. Bright, true colours are costly and hard-won here, which is exactly why they are saved, almost always, for a wedding gown or a christening or some other day the whole village will remember. There is a market some distance off, a half-day's walk, held only once a week, and today is not that day. But Agnes still has the ordinary small trades of village life to attend to. A neighbour brings round a basket of eggs in exchange for a measure of Agnes's carefully hoarded honey. Another stops by simply to borrow a needle and stays to talk a while at the door, leaning on the frame in the last of the warm light. Money in this small world changes hands rarely. Far more often, people trade skill for skill and favour for favour. The whole village bound together by an unspoken, endlessly renewed web of small mutual debts. Tomorrow, as it happens, is a Sunday, and the whole rhythm of the village will bend gently around it, the way it does every single week. There is no ploughing on a Sunday, no forge work, no washing at the stream. Only the short walk to the small stone church, its bell calling everyone in from every lane and cottage, and an hour or so of quiet inside its cool stone walls, the one true rest the week reliably offers. Afterward, the green outside the church becomes, for a few hours, something closer to a gathering than a workplace. Neighbours lingering to talk properly, for once without a task pulling at their hands. Children let loose to run and shout after a week of smaller chores. Twice a year, perhaps, this same green hosts something grander still, a feast day tied to the turning of the seasons, when the whole village, and often the next village over besides, gathers for a shared meal laid out on trestle tables, music from a borrowed fiddle or a homemade pipe, and dancing that lasts some years well past dark. These are the days this village truly lives for, the bright threads woven through an otherwise steady workaday cloth. And Agnes, thinking of the harvest feast still some weeks off, finds herself smiling faintly at the thought of it as she walks. The blacksmith's forge falls quiet as the light dims further, the ring of his hammer replaced by birdsong and the low, contented sound of the hens settling for the night. Smoke curls thicker now from every cottage roof, the whole village slowly gathering itself in toward the warmth of its many small fires, one household at a time, as the sky above the thatch deepens from gold to a soft, bruised violet. Evening, in a world without electric light, is a wholly different thing than evening as you and I know it. Candles are precious here, made slowly and carefully from tallow rendered out of animal fat, and they are never burned carelessly. Most evenings, the fire itself provides the only real light in the cottage, and the family gathers close around it as the true dark settles in outside. Thomas mends a harness by the flickering glow. Agnes finishes her day's spinning, the thread running steady and even through her fingers, even without watching it, the motion worn smooth by years of repetition. Supper is simple. The same pottage warmed again, a little more bread, perhaps a cup of small ale, brewed weak and safe to drink when the well water itself cannot always be trusted. And then, in the last of the firelight, comes the part of the evening that this village, and every village like it, treasured most: the telling of stories. An old man from along the lane, whose knees are no longer good for the fields, has a whole store of old tales, half history and half something else entirely, of saints and clever foxes, and a knight who once, long ago, was said to have passed this very way. Children lean in close around the fire, half drowsy already, hanging on every familiar word. There are no books here for most of this village. Almost no one can read. But there is this instead, this deep and ancient art of simply telling a story well by firelight, voice low and warm, exactly the way it had been told the night before, and the night before that, back through more evenings than anyone could ever count. Outside, full night has fallen completely now, and it is a different kind of dark than you have likely ever truly known. No streetlight, no glow of a distant town, nothing at all but the cottage's own small, warm window, and above it, when the clouds happen to clear, an almost unbearable wealth of stars, scattered in a thick, generous band clear across the whole black sky. And so, at last, the fire is banked down carefully for the night, embers raked and covered so they will hold their gentle heat until the coaxing breath of tomorrow's dawn. Agnes and Thomas settle onto the same straw mattress, the same rough wool blanket, the animals shifting quietly and companionably just beyond the low partition wall. Tomorrow will bring much the same as today, and the day after that much the same again. And there is, in that steady sameness, its own particular kind of deep and settled peace. No urgent messages waiting to be answered, no glowing screen demanding just one more moment of attention. Only the fire dimming slowly to red, and the wind moving gently through the thatch overhead, and far off, once, the soft call of an owl somewhere out past the fields. Somewhere across the sleeping village, that same owl is answered by another, farther off still, and then the night settles back into its long, unbroken quiet, broken only by the occasional low shift of an animal, the creak of a cottage settling, the wind finding its way gently, gently under the eaves. The same stars that watched over Agnes and Thomas tonight have watched over every single night since, turning slowly overhead through wars and plagues and centuries of ordinary Tuesdays exactly like this one. And they are turning just as slowly, just as patiently, above you too, right now, wherever in the world you happen to be lying tonight. Thank you for spending this day in the Middle Ages with me tonight. If these quiet journeys help you rest, consider subscribing and perhaps tell me in the comments which century you would like to wander into next. But that is a thought for tomorrow. For now, the fire is banked, the animals are settled, and the whole patient village is sleeping soundly all around you. Good night and sweet dreams.